Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're making this hexagonal box, which was inspired by a cartonnage box which I saw on Pinterest. The box is roughly 3.5 by 4 inches on the base, 5 inches high, and it does widen to about 6 inches on the widest point. Once you see how the box comes together, you will be able to resize this. The key thing will be that whatever the width of your sides are on your hexagon, that is the width of the side that you need on your square. So you could go for much larger hexagons or smaller hexagons. With this box this size, if you consider the way you cut the cardstock, you will be able to get all of the pieces out of 3 sheets of A4 or US letter cardstock. It's not a complicated box to put together, but you do need to pay attention to your measurements, and you do need to make sure that you thoroughly fold and burnish any of the score lines, because that will give you a crisper look. And of course, as with any project, you can make sure that the pieces do align before you actually glue them into place. So without further ado, let's put the project together. The first thing we're going to do is make the template for the hexagon. And this hexagon is going to have sides which are 2 inches. We have made a template for this in a previous project, so you might already have one of these ready, which you can skip this next section and then move forward. If not, we're going to make this hexagon now. So you want to get yourself some cardstock that you're going to be able to draw around. So maybe some old packaging, maybe the back of a paper pad, just something which is sturdy enough, and you're going to need to draw around it about 8 times. So just bear that in mind with the cardstock that you use. So I have a piece which is 4 inches times 3.5 inches, and put the piece in on the 3.5 inch side. And we're going to draw a pencil line from top to bottom at 1 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to use my scoreboard, but obviously you don't need to use your scoreboard. You could just use your pencil and ruler. So I've got my ruler lined up with 1 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to draw a line straight from top to bottom like so. Rotate the piece to the 4 inch side and line your ruler up with the 1 inch track. Make sure your ruler's running vertically if you're using your scoreboard, and then move your ruler along to the 3 inch track. Already you can see that the distance between the pencil line here and the pencil line here is 2 inches. So if you take your piece out of the scoreboard, and we start with the right hand side, if I line my ruler up with the top of the pencil mark and then angle it down to the end of the pencil line, the length of that line will be 2 inches, and you want to do that all the way around, and this is going to give us our hexagon where the length of all the sides is going to be the same. And there you can see our hexagon shape. So the next thing to do is to cut that out, and that is going to give you a template which looks like this. And that's what we're now going to use. So what we want to do now is, I've got my pieces prepared because I had to check that the project worked. So I'm going to demonstrate on copier paper, but you can now go straight onto your base cardstock. But I would recommend that you work on the reverse. So all your pencil lines and everything that we're going to do is going to be on the back. So I've got my cardstock here. This is the reverse of the cardstock. And I'm going to line my ruler up approximately 1/2 inch from the bottom edge. It doesn't need to be exactly 1/2 inch, but you want it to be high enough from the bottom so that you're going to have a glue tab, so it will create enough for a glue tab. Take your hexagon template, and you want to make sure you've got a really nice sharp pencil for this, because obviously the wider you make the lines, and then when you come to cut, it might change the piece slightly. So I've got my template, and I'm going to sit it almost level with the left hand side. So I'm going to draw around my template. Once you see how this comes together, you'll be able to change up the hexagons to suit any size that you need. So I'm just going to move the template away and then join across the bottom line. So that's our first side. I'm then going to take the template piece, and I'm going to line it up with this top right hand angle. So the top right hand angle is going to be lined up with the bottom left hand angle like so. So that is going to sit like so. And then again, I'm going to draw around like so. Then if you've removed your ruler, bring your ruler back in because we're going to put another hexagon in here and we want a glue tab attached. So I'm now going to join the top left hand angle of my template up with the bottom right hand angle. So this is going to sit like so. So I've got 3 interconnecting hexagons. Now I'm going to just put an arrow pointing upwards in this center hexagon here. So that's our first side. Then you want to bring in your second piece of cardstock, and again we're going to be working on the reverse. And if you're using directional paper, you want the top of your paper to be at this edge in front of you, so the direction of your pattern is running in that direction. So I've got my first hexagon and I'm going to sit it level with the base of the cardstock and about ½ inch away from the edge on the left. And I'm going to draw around like so. Then I'm going to line the bottom left hand corner up with the top right hand corner like so. And then I'm going to line the top left hand corner up with the bottom right hand corner. So that's our shape for this one. Because we're working on this one upside down, I'm going to put an arrow in that direction. And we now want to add in some glue tabs. On this top left hand edge, I'm going to just mark approximately ½ inch mark like so. I'm going to do the same at the top like so, and then do the same on the top right hand edge on this side. So when we cut this piece, we're going to cut these as glue tabs. Now we're going to cut these out and score them. You might want to cut out and then score, or score and then cut out. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to mark in the score lines. If you would prefer to score whilst the piece is whole, you can do that now. I'll put the score lines in black so that you can see. So if you prefer to score before you cut, so that is going to be a score line. This is going to be a score line. And this is going to be a score line. And the score lines on the second piece will be here, here, and here. The next thing we want to do is cut these out. Now, if we cut these carefully, we can maximise the rest of the cardstock that's left around the edge to create some of the squares that we're going to need to complete the look of the box. So I'll just bring in my scissors. Again, I've cut this out on my actual cardstock, but I'll demonstrate on this copier paper. So in these sections here, we want to include a glue tab. So I'm going to cut at the same angle as this line and cut like so. Do the same this side and cut like so. Do the same on the right hand side, cut like so, cut like so. So I haven't drawn a glue tab in, but I've cut the glue tab in. And then I'm going to cut around the rest of the outer edge. So that's one piece. So on this piece, we want to include some glue tabs as marked. So I'm going to cut straight up this bottom left and then just continue the cut line to the edge of the cardstock, and then just cut along the pencil mark I've made to add in a glue tab, and then continue round and then extend this cut line level with my pencil mark, and then cut along like so to create a glue tab. continue. So that is my piece, and I've got this remainder which I can get some of my squares that I'm going to need out of. So that's that piece, and then if you haven't already done, on both pieces you can fold and burnish along the score lines. To join the hexagon and make up the hexagon shape, you'll need 3 squares which are 3 inches by 3 inches, and you will score on all 4 sides at 1/2 inch. So you will be able to get some of the squares that we need out of this cardstock that you will have left behind. So 3 by 3 squares, and then you will need 3 squares which are 3 inches times 2.5 inches. And on these 3 squares, along the 3 inch side, score at 1/2 and 2.5, and then on the 2.5 inch side, score at 2 inches. So you will have one edge which doesn't have a glue tab, whereas this one you've got glue tabs on all 4 sides. So we'll start with the 3 inch square, and you fold and burnish along all of the score lines, and then we're going to cut glue tabs into all 4 sides. So I'm going to remove the corners like so, and then take a wedge from the ends of each of these. So you'll have 3 pieces which look like this, and then if you bring in the 3 by 2.5 inch, again we're going to remove the corner squares, take a wedge from the ends of the 3 glue tabs. So you'll have 3 pieces which look like this. So if you put these ones to one side, so we'll start with the one that's got the 2 glue tabs, and using whatever is your preferred adhesive. So I'm going to put glue on the first glue tab like so, and this is going to secure into place like so. So that's the start of our first square, and then I'm going to add glue onto this glue tab, and this is going to secure into here. Flip this out the way, add glue onto this glue tab, and this one is going to come across and secure in place like so. And then once I'm happy, I'm just going to flip that over and just work on one piece at a time, burnish the glue tabs down, and you want to make sure that you're burnishing, you're pushing down rather than moving them. It's quite easy, especially if you're using construction glue, to move the glue tabs, and that will get everything out of shape then. So let's just get rid of all this excess glue. So that is the first section. So you can see how that half, these are base glue tabs, how that half of the box is going to look. So we're now going to bring in our next square. So this is the piece that we've just glued. This is going to sit onto this side here. So this one is going to sit onto here. And then take your last square that's got the 4 glue tabs. This one, I'm going to add glue onto this glue tab, and this one is going to sit here. You can see I've got square, hexagon, square, hexagon, square. So now we can bring in our second piece. So this is our base glue tab, so that's going to sit down like so. And these are our other base glue tabs. This glue tab here on the left hand side, this is going to secure to the left hand side of this hexagon, so that's going to sit on there like so. So I'll add some glue onto here. So this one sits this way up, and this glue tab is going to fit onto this piece here like so, and then the glue tab the other side is going to fit on the other side of that hexagon. So that is going to come like so. and that is effectively our base. So that's going to sit up like this. These two pieces which are loose, so you might want to fold those backwards out of the way to start with. So if we add glue onto this glue tab, so you can, I'm sure you can see how this is coming together now. This hexagon is going to come across like so, and then this glue tab on the same hexagon is going to sit behind and slot in place like so. So that's all come together. And then if we come to the last section, I'm actually going to add glue onto this tab at the same time, onto this tab, and then this is going to come across and that is going to slot in like so. Once I'm happy, I can just lay this down, go in and burnish down the tabs. So that's our piece. I'm quite happy with that. If you do find that anything's not lining up quite right, you can go in and just trim away along with your scissors if you need to at the end once it's all thoroughly dry. So for instance here, as an example, I could just go in and just neaten up that edge if I felt it was necessary. So the next thing you want to do is bring in the 3 squares like so, and these are going to slot into these top pieces here. So I'm going to add glue onto 3 at the same time. That is going to sit, let's just turn this over so it's easier. That's going to sit in there like so. And then these 2 hexagons are going to come across. So that is going to come and sit in place like so. And then do that with the remaining 2 squares. So that's our piece, and we now want to make the base. So for the base, if you take your template and you just want to draw around that and cut out a hexagon, and that is just going to sit on the bottom like so. I'm just going to check that my glue tabs aren't interfering with one another, and then I can add glue on, and that is going to sit on the bottom. Once that's in place, I can just go and burnish that down. So the final thing will be the lid. So we're going to sit the hexagon so it's at least ½ inch away from the corner of the cardstock, and draw around as we did before. And in fact, the whole of this, where we've drawn around, you will need to score around all of that section. So each of these are going to be score lines, and you can do that obviously before you cut or after you cut. So if we remove that piece, what we now need to do is add a tab around the edge of this, ½ inch around on all sides. So if you imagine that you've increased the size of the hexagon by ½ inch on all 6 sides, your piece is going to look something like this. So you'll cut that out, and that's going to give you something which looks like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is shape the glue tabs. So I'm going to follow the line of the side of the hexagon. So this one is going to be cut into there like so, rotate, and then cut like so. So this one is going to follow the shape of the hexagon like so, rotate and cut like so. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I'm going to fold and burnish the score lines. Bring in your box. So one of these tabs is going to be the hinge and the rest are going to be the tabs which sit down inside the box for the box to close. So you can have the hinge on one of the hexagonal sides or one of the square sides, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to have my hinge attached to a hexagon. Just choose one of the sides, it doesn't matter. Add glue onto this, fold that hinge backwards and then stick that on the inside of that inside like so. Then a lid is going to come down and will slot in place like so. So you might want to add a finger notch into one side, that's entirely up to you, but that is effectively the box now finished and ready for decoration. So I'm going to get on with the decoration of my piece and then I'll come back. Here's the finished completed box. I used the hexagon template and then cut it down about 1/8 of an inch on all of the 6 sides to give the pattern paper. And then the top, I did originally start with a hexagon which was larger, but having stuck that on, I didn't actually like it, so I've just trimmed around. So the top pattern paper is now the same size as the lid itself. And the squares are 1 3/4 inch squares. And then onto the lid, I've added this die cut B, which when it's 100% dry, you'll be able to use it to lift the lid open. So overall, I'm quite happy with how the box has come out. I think this is a good size box. It has a nice look to it, and I think you could certainly use it for lots of different gifts and decorate it to lots of different themes. So there we have the project for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.